Your therapist encourages you to discuss your failed relationship or that incident with the Xerox machine in the hope of making the trauma caused by all this baggage a little more bearable. Well, that's exactly how the airline industry has been dealing with pieces of our baggage, which they find much easier to deal with if it's packed into warehouses or even trashed. The problem lies with the way in which they deal with the processes and people within their own organisations. So sit back, relax, and tell me about your childhood.
Hi Heidi and hi Brent.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm sure there's a lot of our listeners can relate to this story. Lost luggage, never a good thing. But it seems that we're getting really good at losing luggage these days. What on earth's going on?
It is rather a fascinating thing. And yes, they are renting warehouses to store all of this in.
Oh, my word.
And there was recently an interesting discussion in the German press where baggage handlers said, well, people, if all of your bags weren't black, we could find them and get them to you better. So please fly with a unicorn-colored piece of luggage. Needless to say, the German people called that out for the insanity that it is.
Complete shiza.
Recently there was an airline that basically got a 747 and filled it with bags to fly it back to JFK so they could sort the bags out and send them home to where they belonged because they were all stuck in Europe, lost through the process.
The Schiphol airport was turning into like a luggage graveyard.
Yes.
I don't know if it was at Schiphol, but one of the airports was accused of they threw out 1,000 pieces of luggage or something.
Yeah, it's easier to throw it away than to try to figure out where it goes.
Yeah.
Is this a staff shortage? Is this a process issue? Is it both?
One of the more interesting responses to this, aside from carry colorful luggage, was that Qantas Airlines in Australia recently requested that all senior leadership apply to spend 3 months handling bags at the airports.
Right.
In their case, it's a people shortage.
Yeah.
And I think in many cases, it's maybe not necessarily only a people shortage, because it could also be a process shortage because they were not expecting this many people to travel all of a sudden. Yes, we're past pandemic, we're in endemic, but the number of people traveling is multiplied.
That is true.
But that's no excuse.
That is a piss poor excuse. It reminds me of a comedian who once made a joke about, he went to a restaurant and the restaurant said there's a 30 minute wait for a table. The comedian said, if I brought my own table and added to their workload, I'd understand it. But if you can't cope with the tables you got, there's something wrong with the way you're running your restaurant.
Yeah, and that's where it gets interesting. Not that I should be quoting things read on social media, but there was a wonderful quote that said, if I can't buy a Porsche convertible for $1.99, that doesn't mean we have a shortage of Porsches.
Yes.
I think that this Qantas solution of let's get our senior executives to handle our bags is a rather interesting choice because there are some positives about it.
Right.
And there are some other things where you ask, are you actually fixing the right problem there? Have you figured out what the problem is?
See, I would say that skill set, to use one of those horrible business cliches, is probably outside of their wheelhouse. I think if there's any department that should be going down in experience of what it's like for a baggage handler, it's probably the guys that program your databases or look after your computers. This is absolutely about creating a system to make this job easier and more efficient.
But then think about if you are one of those few baggage handlers in Qantas, would that not be a change in the culture and a motivation? Hey, the boss's boss's boss is here to help me. And that's impressive.
And that's where I think the really positive thing is that I would call out to Qantas is there's a level of all hands on deck. If you work for us, you work for us. This is where the crisis is right now. Grab a suitcase and start bailing. From that level, it builds camaraderie, culture, it demonstrates commitment, and it demonstrates caring.
Made them feel special.
Yeah, that's the positive side of it where I say Qantas, not the worst idea. The corollary or the flip side is this question of So how did you end up in this pickle?
Yes.
And
did you fire all your baggage handlers during the pandemic via Zoom?
yes.
Yeah.
And are
Yes.
you trying to hire them back for $1.99 like that Porsche you can't buy?
Yeah.
And were they sick to death of the job anyway? So why would they want to come back?
Right.
Exactly.
And there are lots of jobs out there currently. As we know,
Yep.
the employment numbers are amazing. If you want a new job, go find one.
I live here in Denver, and DIA Airport was opened, I think, in 1995. And at the time, it had one of the most comprehensive automated baggage handling systems in the country. I'm not even sure, it might have been the world. Cost $238 million. Miles and miles of conveyor, boxes, countless computers.
It worked for shite.
It was shite. It was plagued by problems from the get-go. It managed to make it to just about a decade when they said enough's enough, and they replaced it with a manual system. So what I'm sort of getting to is it's not an easy problem to solve. You need good people to make this process work.
Yeah, that's truly where I see the shortfall on Qantas's response. If Qantas had said, for the next 3 months, management, all hands on deck, and at the same time, we are going to increase wages, we are going to analyze the system, and we are going to hire in X number. That's the complete response that you want to hear, because as it stands, getting your leadership on the front line is purely grandstanding if you're not going to dig in and look at that question. To the point of DIA, because I've actually written about the Denver airport. It's
I'd like to
an
read that.
interesting case study on cocked up project management.
Right.
We constantly tell our clients, if you are not innovating, you will get bypassed. And you look at the problem of baggage handling, you look at the history of it at DIA and at the airport in Berlin.
Right.
People need a better system for that. So if you're looking for a place to earn buku money out of innovation, that's where it is, and this is the time to do it.
Yeah. If you are not disrupting a system, the system will disrupt you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's just the way it is.
You know, waiting 40 minutes for baggage is not okay.
Yeah.
I am amused when I switch airplanes in an airport and my bags actually show up. I'm like, wow, it actually showed up.
It's luggage roulette. And
What
then
a
if it does show
miracle.
up, what state's it going to be in?
We have lost luggage, and we've had it hidden in London for a week, and then it shows up later.
Well, and the more amusing one was Brent had a uniform hat that went to Hawaii without him.
Whoa.
Yes, for some reason, my drill sergeant hat back in my last life went to Hawaii without me. It's a little hard to show up as a drill sergeant without your hat.
Yes. I read somewhere that Apple tags are being used to be placed placed in luggage.
Yeah.
I would say Samsonite. Why not just put one in automatically?
Yeah.
Have an app that connects to your luggage. Full stop. You know.
Well,
put it in
it's
put it
interesting,
in the suitcase.
especially those. A lot of military families are dropping them in their overseas shipments.
Yeah.
There was a story of a military family that was moving back from Korea and going to upstate New York. And the spouse called the shipping company and said, well, when can we expect our shipment? And he's like, well, it just got to Los Angeles. And she said, no, actually, it's in New Jersey. My air tag just told me my belongings are in New Jersey. And the guy hung up on her. And then 10 minutes later, she got a call saying, we found your hold baggage. It's in Jersey. It'll be there tomorrow.
Would you get kickback from your clients on the idea of someone from the higher echelons coming down to where the normal folk work?
There is always someone who pushes back on that. And there is research and there is a real business case for operating your company as we. And only if you work as we and understand the other people within your organization do you have a fighting chance of your company being a top flight place where people want to work. If you want to fix your culture, fundamentally, You have to be willing to do any job in that company.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a litmus test, isn't it, for anyone listening to this? And if they feel uncomfortable about the idea of going back down to the shop floor, they need to think about themselves.
And at the same time, baggage handling is a very labor-intensive and difficult job. You might want to be careful who you send, because you could have some serious injuries.
You're Warren Buffett.
Yes. You may not want to send them down to baggage handling.
Yeah. So what are we going to be talking about next week then, Brent and Heidi?
We thought the idea was brilliant.
I like the sound of that. As always, a nice bit of Flash Gordon cliffhanger ending.
Yes.
Taking us into the next episode. Thank you so much. Well, I will speak to you next week.
Talk next week.
Talk soon.